Good afternoon. Yeah. I'm John Eckel with Pinnacle Investment Management, and I'm really happy to welcome you today to one of our continuing educational series. What we're trying to do with these educational series is provide everyone with the ability to make the best financial decisions to fulfill their financial goals. Today we're going to be talking about charitable gifting, and we're really pleased today to have just a wealth of knowledge here. Charitable gifting has been growing, and in 2015, Americans gifted over $1 billion a day. That's billion with a B, which is a pretty large amount. But just because they're gifting, and gifting in large numbers, does not necessarily mean they're making the best decisions on their charitable giving. And by that, I'm talking not only about whether they're giving to the charity that's most effectively going to accomplish their goals for charitable giving, but also the vehicles that they choose for those charitable gifts. There are many ways to make a charitable gift. We want to do it with some flexibility and get tax benefits as well. I think we all know that it's easy to write a check or give cash to a charity of your choice. And in many cases, that works well. But there are other methods of making charitable gifts. For example, you can donate appreciated assets, such as stocks and or real estate, and take a tax deduction and potentially avoid a capital gains tax. We can also gift for those 70 and a half and above directly from an IRA to a charity in many cases. The advantage of doing that is that you keep your adjusted gross income low, you avoid Connecticut state income tax on that income, and you may reduce your Medicare surcharges and also reduce your Obamacare surcharges on investment income. So we're going to talk today about different vehicles that may help you achieve your financial goals. Today we're honored to have three experts in the field. We're going to talk first. We're going to hear first from Stephen Schwanke. Stephen is with Fidelity Charitable. He has over 18 years of experience in financial services. Fidelity Charitable works with donor-advised funds where you can gift today, take a tax deduction today, but the donor-advised fund does not make their ultimate gift to the charity of your choice until sometime in the future. So that's great for people who are in a high tax bracket today, but maybe in a lower tax bracket in the future. Stephen has a BS from VMI. He's a certified financial planner. And as I mentioned, he's got over 18 years of experience in financial services. Also, we'll be hearing from Deborah Rothstein. Deb is with the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. She has a law degree from the University of Connecticut, a master's from Boston University. The Hartford Foundation for Public Giving has been around for 90 years. It services 29 towns in the greater Hartford area to helping those towns and those in those towns in need. And then we're going to hear from Catherine Beati. Catherine is with Foundation Source. Foundation Source provides advice for those people who would like to develop and form a foundation, a charitable foundation, and operate that foundation. Catherine has a BS from Ithaca College, and she has over 20 years of experience in the financial services industry, and she is a fairly recent mother, now of two. And so we're going to hear from those experts, and we're talking really about charitable giving vehicles. But I would also like to mention today, too, that even though we don't have the time really to discuss particular charities, I'd like to recognize Lynn Branham from the Rob Branham Foundation. And the Rob Branham Foundation was founded in the honor of her former husband, Rob Branham, who had died of leukemia a while back. Their goal in life is to try to help families and individuals in need who are going through circumstances similar to what Rob went through, dealing with leukemia and other blood-related diseases. With that said, I'd like to first introduce Stephen, and the approach we're going to take today is everyone is going to give just a quick overview of their area of expertise, and then we're going to go back and talk a little bit more depth, and finally we'll wrap up with a Q&A. So we'll give it to Stephen.
Great. Thank you, John. Thank you for allowing us to come here today and talk to you about something that's very impactful in the world today, and it's philanthropy. Now, the United States is the largest philanthropic market in the world. And as John had mentioned, people in the United States give about $1 billion a day. Last year, in 2015, we saw that $373 billion is actually given to charity, which is an astronomical sum if you think about it. Do you know that the gasoline industry last year was only $340 billion? That means that people are giving more money to charity than they are actually putting gas in their car. It's pretty impactful, and it's great to see, because we all have those issues that we want to see taken care of. So I work for Fidelity Charitable. Now, Fidelity Charitable, our mission is to further the American tradition of philanthropy by providing programs that make charitable giving simple and effective. And the way we do that is by a donor-advised fund. Now, a donor-advised fund, for those who don't know what a donor-advised fund is, they often are also called DAFs. It's a simple, it's an account type. It's kind of like a 529 plan, but its specifically purpose is for charitable giving. So you put money into it, you get a tax deduction for what you ultimately put in, because Fidelity Charitable is an IRS-recognized 501c3 public charity. Now, once it's in that account, it has the ability to grow, appreciate, and value. There's 20 different sub-accounts. They're pooled investments. So what we really want to see this asset grow from one point to another, so that ultimately you have more money to give out to those causes that you care the most about. Now, what we found with Fidelity Charitable, we're the largest donor-advised fund in the nation, and we are really trying to be impactful. Last year, our donors entrusted us with over $4.3 billion. But also, our donors turned around and gave out $3.1 billion to the causes that they support. We are the second largest grant maker behind the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and we have about 130,000 different donors that have entrusted us. We're here to make that simple, easy, and efficient, and really thank you for the opportunity today. With that, I'll hand it over to Deborah.
Thank you, Stephen. So I'm Deborah Rothstein, Vice President for Development at the Hartford Foundation. I want to introduce my colleague, Liana Garcia-Fresher, who's here also. And I, too, like Stephen, am really amazed by the generosity of our donors here in Hartford and around the country. It really is spectacular, and we wouldn't be able to have a lot of services that are in place without that. I mean, the state has its limits, the federal government has limits. The life we live is due in part because of the generosity of donors like you, who help to make sure that those services are available. The Hartford Foundation is a community foundation, and community foundations are kind of a unique institution. Many were created in the 1900s. The Hartford Foundation actually is 91 years old now. So we were created in 1925. But the vision was that a group of members of the community would come together to create a charitable institution that would help the region. So there are actually 800 community foundations like the Hartford Foundation around the country. They vary in size, and they're based on geography. So each state determines how many foundations, community foundations, are in their region. In Connecticut, we have 12 major foundations, the Hartford Foundation being the largest. Some states like Rhode Island have one, the Rhode Island Community Foundation. So it really varies, but the commonality is doing good in the community, helping people in the community to do good. The Hartford Foundation does broad grant making. So we, about each year, more than $30 million is distributed out into the community in towns like Simsbury and 29 other towns, Hartford proper, and it runs all the way from Enfield down to, through Manchester, Rocky Hill. In your handouts, you'll see a map of the areas that we cover. And what we do is really, besides the grant making is a big part of it, those are the distributions that go out, but we work with donors to individuals, whether they be in businesses, couples, single people, families. We work to help them do their philanthropy in an easier and better fashion. We work with their professional advisors around the area to be a resource to them as they help their clients. John is actually on our professional advisory committee. We also strengthen the nonprofits in the region. This is very important to us. We work to award grants for today's, dollars, and we work to help them build endowments for the future. At the heart of what we do is working with individuals on their charitable gift planning. So it's a very deliberate process. We love when people write checks to their favorite agencies, and we want that to always happen. But we are here to work with you to create a vision and strategy for your giving, not just for today, but also for tomorrow. What you might want to do through your estate planning process. It's a very personalized approach. There's no pressure. This is a service we provide for the community. Whether you work through the foundation or not, we want to help each member of our community do their philanthropy. I do want to call out a couple of things that we offer that you may not know about. We do have something called collective giving, which are giving circles. Has anyone here ever heard of a giving circle? Okay. So these are new in philanthropy, and they're very powerful. I love them because they have a low kind of entry fee level to get started. So, for example, the Hartford Foundation offers 3. There are many others in the region. We have a Catalyst Fund, a Latino Endowment Fund, and a Black Giving Circle. Basically, people pool their funds together, and they collectively make a decision each year about where they want the monies to go. So the Catalyst Fund, for example, has a $500 membership fee. The others have a $365 membership fee. People come together, they learn about a topic which can change year to year, and then they decide on where they want to put the monies each year. This year for Catalyst, our subject is mental illness, which is very topical and timely, and again, it varies year to year. We also offer more traditional funds, including funds. There are funds that can be created to support a particular organization. For example, the Simsbury Land Trust. If that's what you love, you can create a fund that will provide ongoing support for that organization in perpetuity. We have funds where you can select 3 or 5 organizations you want to support. We have funds that are basically to build an endowment for an organization. Several of our libraries are moving in that direction. We have a very robust scholarship fund program. A lot of donors are very passionate about helping kids be able to afford college and their educational dreams, and people do it through community college, 4-year colleges, non-traditional students, and as we know, the need is endless, and college expenses just continue to rise. We, too, offer donor-advised funds. The difference between Fidelity, probably, and ours is that we have local expertise that we can offer, but you can basically don't use a donor-advised fund to do your giving for the region and around the country. And they're compatible. Many of our donors have both kinds of funds. All of us actually are working together for the good of the community, and all of these are great alternatives. In summary, I would just say, I'm just trying to pick the big pieces of the Hartford Foundation. We know the local community really well. We have huge number of professional staff who work with agencies in town, the libraries, all the human service organizations, and we can help you do your giving in the community and out. And we're also a resource to you as you think about your giving, whether it's today, tomorrow, or both. And we welcome opportunities to be with you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Catherine Beati, and I'm Senior Managing Director with Foundation Source. I thought it would be nice just to kind of set the table and talk a little bit about private foundations as another giving alternative, but really just give you a picture of what that landscape looks like. Because a lot of times when I think you hear the words private foundation, people automatically say, well, I'm not Bill Gates, or I'm not Henry Ford, or I'm not one of the Rockefellers. And the fact of the matter is, there are 92,000 private foundations in existence today. Of those, 68% of them have assets of $1 million and less. And I always thought that that was such an interesting statistic because so many people assume, well, you've got to have lots of money. And the fact is, that's just not the case as to what's happening in the world today with giving. So there's a couple of reasons. A lot of people have sort of caught on to the trend that they're starting their foundation sooner with a smaller amount. The beautiful thing about a private foundation is that it's almost like watching your estate plan in action. So you can see how are the kids going to operate when I'm gone? What will that look like? Will they be getting along on the board? What does my board want to look like? How do I want to make this work together? And so a lot of families that we work with are sort of using it as a training ground just to kind of get a sense of how everybody's going to play when mom and dad are no longer around. So a private foundation, just to kind of step back, is a giving vehicle that a lot of families use, companies use it. We work with 1,300 private foundations coast to coast. Our smallest foundation is $250,000. Our largest is $2.5 billion. So we have, again, all shapes and sizes. We have families that come to us. There's one of my favorite families. There's 37 family members that are involved in some way, shape, or form with the foundation, which is really interesting. All the way down to a family that there might be one sole member that is running the foundation. What we do for private foundations is we can actually help with the creation of a foundation. We can have that done fairly rapidly. And then we work with the administration. And the administration is really all of those very fun, glamorous, sexy, exciting tasks that one would have to do in order to have the foundation. And those are things like tax preparation and filing, calculating your 5% distribution requirement. So foundations are required by the IRS to distribute 5% of their assets from the previous 12 months. On average, and when we look at our clients, and we do a survey every year, our clients are giving between 8 and 10% a year. So when we talk about the generosity of what's going on in the country today or what's going on with people, it seems like when things are down for for our country, or when people are in need, people that are philanthropic are absolutely stepping up to the plate and doing more than they're required to do, which is nice. So we help with all the administrative tasks. We will cut checks. We'll make sure everything gets to where it's going. We track it through the process. We have a technology platform, so as long as someone has access to the internet, they have access to their foundation. They can research other organizations, look at tax returns, see who's on the board, to give them just more pieces of information about, is this an organization that we'd like to support with our dollars? And the last piece is working with the families on very specific issues that they may have. So we meet people at all stages of their philanthropy, meaning we meet with people that are at the very beginning, in the middle, towards the latter part of a foundation. So foundations could either be set up that are going to go into perpetuity, meaning they're going to have a next generation take over and the generation beyond that. Or someone may say, I'd like to set it up, but then at my passing, I would like the assets dispersed. So we call that sunsetting. And there are occasionally sunset provisions to a lot of foundations. We'll help, as I said, with folks whichever stage they're in. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that I would say probably about 50% of our clients have both a private foundation and a donor-advised fund. And they could be working with a national organization like Fidelity or a local community foundation. And there are different reasons and different giving tools and pros and cons of having both. But what's nice is having both in their arsenal, they're really able to fulfill whatever giving plans and giving dreams that they have. So really, in summary, what the purpose of Foundation Source and why we've come to be, we've been around for about 16 years, I've been with the company for 11, is we're really helping to first streamline the cost of having a private foundation, making it more accessible to to all individuals, and also just taking some of the, I think, sort of scariness of having a foundation that I think people have thought that in the past it was complicated and costly to run. We've sort of removed and eliminated that. When we think about private foundations, we can think of the very building we're sitting in right now. Lots of the libraries were created as a result of funding from private foundations. The very roads that we're driving on, the Merritt Parkway, and I always forget the name of the other of 15. That was created from a foundation giving in the 40s. Vaccination for polio was created was found as a result of funding from a private foundation. And last but not least, our favorite, Sesame Street. So there are lots of wonderful things that people can do with foundations. There's a lot of creativity. And again, we help facilitate that with our families.
So that's a snapshot of what each one of these organizations does. The in-depth is really in-depth. And perhaps you may have some questions on the initial presentation. If they're quick, we can take those into consideration when they go into more depth. If not, we'll just pass the baton back to Stephen, who can tell us a little bit more. And each one of these vehicles, each one of the charitable vehicles has different tax ramifications and different tax regulations. So we're giving an overview here, and perhaps we can get into a little bit more detail about the tax ramifications and aspects as well.
Are there any questions right now? Okay. Well, let me talk a little bit about the tax ramifications of donor-advised funds. Fidelity Charitable, like I said earlier, is a public foundation, a public charity, 501c3. Now, there are some income tax limitations as to what your deduction would be based upon your annual income. All donations are 100% tax deductible. What you can actually claim this year, there are limitations. So Fidelity Charitable is a 50-30 organization. If you were to donate cash to a donor-advised fund, you could deduct up to 50% of your adjusted gross income in that year of the gift. If you donate appreciated securities, you can deduct up to 30% of your adjusted gross income in the year of the gift. Now, what happens with the unused portion? Well, the IRS allows you to carry forward any unused deduction for up to 5 years. So this year plus an additional 5. So you can therefore make sure to write off your full amount of your gift. Now, Fidelity Charitable is very simple and easy to set up. And you can set up for as little as $5,000, and it could sit right next to all of your other accounts that are on the Fidelity platform. And what we really utilize these accounts for is for planning purposes. Because the whole tax deduction opportunity is that you might find years that you have high income years and then years of low income. So therefore, you can really kind of manage that tax consequence based upon your situation. We do have people at Fidelity Charitable that might be going through a high tax year because of deferred compensation kicking in, as well as possibly they might be getting a very large bonus. But we also see people, and this is very reflective of the M&A activity out there, is with low interest rates, companies are buying other companies. So what we have seen is that people who might have had a C Corp that have grown into a successful business, they might be thinking maybe 1 or 10 years down the road of possibly going through that liquidity event. Now, what Fidelity Charitable has done in our approach to planning for these types of scenarios is that we have an in-house team of attorneys who work with business owners as well as with advisors to help facilitate the sale of these kind of donations. We see everything from ATM machines to timber to mineral rights, from real estate, C Corps, S Corps, LLCs, LPs, carried interest, partnership interest. So, when you think about what to donate, don't just think about your checkbook. Cash is the most expensive asset to donate. And what do I mean by that? If you donate $10,000, it's going to cost you $10,000. But what if you were to donate $10,000 of an appreciated stock? How much is that going to cost you? Well, the answer is it depends. What did you buy the stock for? Fidelity Charitable has helped utilize these kind of situations to say, it's already in your Fidelity account, or it might be in your other account, or with another institution, donate that. We'll sell it for you, and we will alleviate any of the capital gains that you will pay on that appreciation. And then it's sitting into account specifically for your philanthropy. We see a lot of people, just because you retire doesn't mean you retire from giving. So they will front load these accounts as a tool so that it's sitting there for them to use. Just recently, Fidelity Charitable has come out with our 4th year in a row we actually have a donor report. How our donors are giving. And what the takeaways from that report is that we are helping people who are in retirement feel confident that they can continue to support their church. They can continue to support the Red Cross, disaster relief, because they have set it up. And you see it currently with our whole industry and our whole society today is that we plan for retirement, we plan for college, we plan for health care. Why not just make charitable planning the next plan? So that it's there when you need it the most. Another interesting tidbit from our recent report is that philanthropy has become a family conversation. People more often now are trying to include their kids, trying to include their grandkids. Fidelity Charitable has a program called the Gift for Giving. And what we see is that it's a way of giving a charitable gift certificate. You can give it to someone from your account, and they have the ability to turn around and then give it out to the charities they would really like to support. It's great to see around Christmas and around graduation time when, in fact, the grandparents are starting to give to the grandkids. And then in February, Grandma makes a big vat of ziti, invites all the kids over, and every single kid has to get up, tell them what charity they gave to, and why. You want to talk about impact? You want to talk about, passing on the values of philanthropy to the next generation? As well as giving the kids the confidence to get up and to talk about something the impact that they gave to someone else. So Fidelity Charitable has really kind of helped people give money away. And over the 25 years that we have been in existence, we have helped people give away $23.1 billion so far. We'd really like to hit that $25 billion in the 25 year of our existence. As well as our donors have entrusted us to growing these assets with $16.5 billion. Now, what we've ultimately found is that through those donations and through the investment approach that we have put in place, that these assets have actually grown $3.3 billion. That's $3.3 billion that are going to feed the homeless, care for the children on the streets. So using these planned giving vehicles can really help make you increase the impact that you're having in philanthropy. with that, I'll pass it along.
Thank you. So in terms of community foundations like the Hartford Foundation, the same tax consequences apply. You get an immediate charitable deduction the year you make a gift, and then, you know, same ratios, same everything. Like Fidelity, the Hartford Foundation is able to work with you to accept what we call complex gifts. So many people will start a fund with cash or appreciated securities, but we also have people who start or build a fund with real estate, second homes, tangible property. All of this is an option because we have the in-house expertise to handle those. We call that our special assets accounts, and we've done very well with those. We also offer planned gifts, which are, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of charitable gift annuities, charitable remainder trusts, but these are other planning vehicles that can be very powerful. They enable you to make a gift to charity, but also to provide for yourself and or loved ones. And we have a lot of donors who do these. Our minimums are relatively low for both funds and planned gifts. At the Hartford Foundation, you can start a fund, we call it a build-up fund, for $1,000. And you can build that up over time to our $10,000 minimum. Planned gifts also are on the lower end, and the rates are very, very attractive compared to what you would get in the commercial market. So these are other things. Many of our donors do all of these things because it can be very effective depending on where they are in their lifespan. We also see many donors who do legacy planning, and this is where we have the expertise to work with those donors to help them think about what is the best way to carry on my charitable intentions after I'm gone. What do I want to pass on to my children? It could be that they're creating donor-advised funds for their children, or if they have existing donor-advised funds, they give that right to their children and grandchildren. We see a lot of people doing that. We have other people who are using their IRAs and putting the Hartford Foundation as a beneficiary, or using the charitable IRA rollover provisions to start new funds. We take the time to really sit with you and plan and formalize your intentions. Even though they're not binding, these are not legally binding documents, because we know life changes and we want always for you to take care of yourself and your loved ones first. But people are often surprised that they can do things, for charity as well and for their family. That's a really important message. And it is we're seeing many, many people do things with their families and think about how they want to involve either children, nieces and nephews. How do they want to engage their kids and make sure that they're involved? So we have, in addition to all the legal planning and legacy planning, we've also had opportunities. We've offered workshops on what we call ethical wills, and we'll be doing that again, so I'll share the information with John. But that's really the emotional part of your legacy. What kind of traditions and values do you want to share with your family? How do you want to put that down in paper? It's a very valuable experience to think about. So it's really the whole package: today giving, tomorrow giving. All of that is possible. And the other thing I'd like to say is just that we really encourage partnerships in this day and age with private foundations, with Fidelity. The more we can leverage gifts, distributions, the better our community will be as we work together. So that's another important message.
Tax deductions. For a private foundation, we are, if you donate cash, you get a deduction of 30%. You are able, as you illustrated, it's a 100% deduction, but in that particular year, it's 30% of your AGI. If it's appreciated securities, it's 20%. Now, the really neat thing with this is there is a 5-year carry forward period, and this is applicable for all of us. So when you're sitting down with a CPA and you're doing tax planning, there's also a way that you might look at a combination and see where you can max out in both. So what I would say is, to not solely base a decision based on the tax deduction, but really looking at what makes the most sense as you kind of move forward in your giving legacy and you're thinking about what you're planning to do long term. One of the other things I wanted to just really briefly touch on was some of the other things that you might be able to do in a private foundation, such as scholarship programs, program-related investments. That is what is the phrase? What's old is new. So program-related investments have been around since the 70s, and it's now come kind of back up, and they're sort of in vogue, and they're really popular, and it's a way to do a loan to an organization. The IRS just came back recently with some clarification on that, because there was still, in order to do this, you had to look at the financial return. And that was the only way that you could use your private foundation to make this type of investment. What they've come back and said that you no longer have to have the financial return, you can also have a social return. So I'm going to give you probably the most popular example that's out there right now, and it's about potentially having a private foundation fund a drug company for the specific reason of having a drug come to market. So as we know, companies are in the business to make money, and sometimes when they think about bringing a specific drug to market, they sort of look at the projection of, is this going to make the organization money? And sometimes things are shelved because maybe there's not enough people that would want to have this, and a private foundation would enter into a partnership with that for-profit entity, and they would essentially fund to have this drug be brought to market. Maybe they would utilize it for a third world country or some other type of program, but that is now a possibility through private foundations. So when we kind of think about things that are possible, there's grants to individuals. There's a lot of interesting things that people are able to do.
I'd like to thank the expert panel. They came from some distance. Stephen came from North Carolina. Catherine came from Boston, and Deb came from Hartford, but she brought a wealth of knowledge with her, and we really do appreciate all that information you've provided. I hope they will stick around for a few minutes and answer any further questions you may have. And Lynn Branham, from who is our closest charity right here in Simsbury, hopefully will stick around and answer any questions. She can probably tell you a little bit more about what she went through in establishing her foundation and her charity and operating it. So thank you very much. Our next educational event will be in September. We're going to have someone talk about financial abuse of the elderly, and from the State Department of Banking. So that's getting to be a growing problem. So thank you again. Really appreciate it.